In a small suburban town in the United States, where the hum of traffic mixed with the laughter of children riding bikes down tree-lined streets, there lived a boy named Ethan Parker. His life appeared simple to anyone passing by: school in the mornings, basketball practice in the afternoons, dinners at the family table, and homework late into the night. But beneath that surface of ordinary routine burned a storm of questions in his young heart. Ethan was the kind of boy who could never stop wondering why people lived the way they did, why so many seemed unhappy, and why adults often told children to just do as they're told. To his friends, he was a little too serious, a little too thoughtful, the one who would stare out the window during class, not because he was daydreaming, but because he was searching for something he couldn't yet name. At home, life was modest. His father worked long hours at a local factory, coming home tired, grease on his hands, worn down but determined to provide. "Son," his father would often say, "you don't need to overthink life. Just work hard, get good grades, find a good job, and you'll be fine." His mother, a nurse at the nearby hospital, was gentler but equally practical. "Ethan, don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Life is hard enough without asking so many big questions." But Ethan couldn't silence the fire in his chest. Each night, lying awake in bed, he would whisper, "There has to be more. Life can't just be about grades, money, and jobs. There must be something deeper." One chilly autumn afternoon, while walking home from school, Ethan cut through the town's park. On a bench under a fading oak tree sat an elderly man sketching in a worn notebook. Something about him drew Ethan closer. The man noticed the boy's glance and spoke before Ethan could walk away. "Do you ever," the man said, his voice calm but firm, "like the world is running too fast and you're not sure where it's going?" Ethan froze. It was as if the man had plucked out his deepest thought. "Yes," Ethan whispered, "all the time." The man smiled faintly. "Life is not about running with the crowd, son. It's about finding your reason to walk, even if no one walks beside you." From that day, Ethan returned often. The man, Mr. Reynolds, was a retired teacher who had once traveled far and wide. Ethan listened, captivated, as Mr. Reynolds shared lessons from history and stories of people who had overcome unimaginable challenges. "The greatest danger," he would say, "is not failing, but never daring to try. Too many live small lives because they fear questions. Remember this: knowledge is light, but only if you share it. Greatness isn't found in wealth or status, it's found in service." Those conversations lit a fire in Ethan. He devoured books, philosophy, science, biographies. He filled journals with reflections and lessons. But the more he grew inwardly, the more out of place he felt. His classmates teased him, calling him professor. Teachers rolled their eyes when he pushed beyond the syllabus. Even at home, his father sighed. "Dreamers end up disappointed, Ethan. The world rewards results, not ideas." But Ethan remembered Mr. Reynolds' words: "Walk your path, even if no one walks beside you." His first real test came during a school volunteer trip to a local homeless shelter. Most classmates did the minimum, but Ethan noticed a boy about 12 sitting in the corner, eyes hollow with pain. His name was Lucas. He had been abandoned and carried the weight of despair heavier than any child should. Something inside Ethan refused to walk past. He sat down and said softly, "I know life feels unfair, but it doesn't end here. You're stronger than you think." At first, Lucas said nothing, but Ethan kept returning, playing basketball with him, teaching him to read, listening when no one else did. Slowly, Lucas began to smile again, began to hope. That experience changed Ethan. He realized knowledge without service was incomplete. He started volunteering regularly, teaching kids, helping with homework, mentoring in sports. He found that the more he gave, the more alive he felt. His grades remained good, but more importantly, his purpose was beginning to take shape. He wasn't chasing success for himself. He was chasing meaning for others. Years passed. Ethan entered college, carrying both ambition and humility. He studied hard, not for grades, but for understanding. He tutored struggling classmates, organized study groups, and volunteered in the community. Yet college wasn't easy. He was rejected from internships, often due to lack of connections. He worked part-time jobs to pay tuition, sometimes staying up all night juggling assignments and shifts. There were nights when exhaustion broke him, when doubt whispered, "Maybe your father was right, maybe survival is enough." But every time he thought of giving up, he remembered Lucas, remembered Mr. Reynolds' voice, remembered the truth. Effort writes destiny. By his mid-20s, Ethan had started a small mentorship program for underprivileged youth in his city. At first, only a handful of kids came. Funding was scarce, and adults dismissed him, saying, "You can't change the world with speeches." But Ethan persisted. He worked extra shifts to keep the program alive, gathered donated books, and turned setbacks into lessons. Slowly, the seed grew. More kids came, volunteers joined, and soon his program had become a movement. They didn't just teach academics, they taught resilience, confidence, and kindness. Ethan reminded his students, "Greatness isn't about what you earn, it's about what you learn and how you use it to lift others." Yet life tested him again. A year later, a major sponsor withdrew funding, nearly collapsing the program. Ethan felt crushed. Standing in the empty classroom, he thought about shutting it all down. Maybe his father had been right, maybe dreaming was foolish. But just then, Lucas, now grown and in college, walked in. "Ethan," he said firmly, "you can't quit. Do you remember what you told me when I had nothing? You told me life doesn't end here. If you stop now, think of all the kids who will lose the only light they have. You changed my life. You have to keep going." Tears filled Ethan's eyes. He realized his work wasn't just an idea, it was a lifeline. With renewed determination, he rallied the community, rebuilt the program, and made it bigger than ever. The years rolled on, and Ethan's work spread far beyond his hometown. What began as a small mentorship group became a nationwide initiative recognized for transforming thousands of young lives. He was invited to speak at schools, universities, and conferences, not as a celebrity or a millionaire, but as a man who had lived his message. He told his story openly, the nights of doubt, the failures, the mockery he faced, the hunger he endured, the choices he made to keep serving. People listened not because he was perfect, but because he was real. By his 40s, Ethan had become a leader in educational reform, advocating for systems that didn't just teach information, but built character and resilience. Yet despite the recognition, he never forgot his roots. He still visited shelters, still sat with children who felt forgotten, still reminded them, "You are not small, you are not worthless, the world needs your light." His life became proof that success isn't measured in wealth or status, but in lives touched. And then, one spring evening decades later, Ethan stood on a stage in front of thousands at an international youth conference in London. His hair was streaked with gray now, his face lined with struggle and triumph, but his eyes still carried the fire of the boy who once sat restless in a small American town. He shared his story, the boy with questions, the lessons from Mr. Reynolds, the friendship with Lucas, the failures, the victories. His voice rose as he ended. "Greatness is not found, it is grown, and it begins the moment you decide to live not just for yourself, but for others. Effort writes your destiny, courage shapes it, and kindness gives it meaning. If you feel small, remember, even a single candle can light a whole room. Be that candle." The applause shook the hall, but Ethan didn't see it as praise for him. He saw it as proof the message mattered. As he stepped off the stage, a boy no older than he once was ran up, eyes wide. "Sir," the boy asked, "how do I find my purpose?" Ethan smiled gently, just as Mr. Reynolds had once smiled at him, and said, "Purpose isn't waiting for you to find it. It's waiting for you to create it, through what you learn, the effort you give, and the lives you touch. Begin today with one act of courage, one act of kindness, and the rest will unfold." The boy's eyes lit up, and Ethan knew the cycle would continue. And so, the story of an ordinary boy from an American suburb became a timeless lesson, that questions can lead to truth, that effort can carve destiny, and that true success lies not in what we take, but in what we give. To every listener, his story whispered, "You don't need to be wealthy, famous, or perfect to change the world. You only need courage to rise, wisdom to learn, and love to serve."